how I first was impacted by Cheap Trick by Jack Douglas. Well, I think they had sent me some demos along the way, which I kind of really liked. And then I was in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and they were playing in a bowling alley there. And I went to see them in the bowling alley, and I was like knocked out of my chair. First of all, their show was more like a carnival than it was a rock show. They had games at the audience participation games. The best one was Rick would guess your weight, and in order to guess, it was always women, and in order to guess their weight, they would have to sit on his face on the stage.
Oh my God.
And then he would guess their weight. And it was always like really, I must have been fixed. But it was always like almost dead on, and then they would win a prize. And there was a lot of running out into the audience and grabbing people, and and much as there still is, pick throwing. But of course, in a small area, it was deadly.
Right.
And it was really loud, and it just, and all of the songs that I had heard from their demos sounded even better. And so I knew that I wanted to do something with the band. And I called my friend Tom Werman at Epic. He was the head of A&R at Epic Records. And I told him that if he didn't come out and sign this band, that I would give them the RCA. And he luckily trusted my judgment on rock bands, and came out, and he loved them too, and he signed the band. But I was just knocked out by these four characters, and they had been playing for a long time before I saw them. So they had it honed in. It was a great show. They never did that show again, I don't think, on a big stage. But it was like a carnival. It was a combination of a carnival and a cartoon, and it was really wonderful. I want to know how everybody else was affected, if they were similarly affected.
I mean, I'll talk about mine. I mean, I remember, coming from the MTV generation, really, I can remember coming home, and, the TV back then was the babysitter. So I would just kind of have that on the background. My mom would be gone. I just remember having MTV on and seeing all of these videos. And my first taste of Cheap Trick, I want to say, was Tonight It's You, the video for Tonight It's You, which is a fantastic song. I just remembered like hearing that song and just being just like transfixed by it. Just like the way that it built, the way that Robin sang, and then obviously the aesthetic in the band, which, half looks like a rock band. The other half looks like a totally different band to begin with. Yeah. I was just like, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. So, and then as time went on, I caught more videos, which was, I think that the video for She's Tight was out by then. And then there was a live video for I Want You to Want Me, which I think I recall hearing on the radio when I was younger, and just being like, oh, that's that band. And I would just kind of drew parallels from like a younger memory back to, it was kind of like that weird moment when as a kid, you realized Ozzy was the singer for Black Sabbath, but you didn't know, you didn't know the history yet. So putting that together and really and realizing that, man, this band has history, you know, and then you go and you explore that for me. And the more I dug, the better it got, because I mean, between that and Dream Police, and I mean, just everything on Budokan was just so great. And the songs were great. And I was just a fan from that moment on.
Well, it's nice of you to mention one of the later songs that I produced, which was
yeah. Oh, dude. I mean,
that song is amazing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to this day, they have such a great ear for not just for rock, but for pop sensibilities, which some people think is anathema, but that's the earworm. Like, you want that.
Yeah.
So people keep coming back. I mean, it's the whole reason why I love that and like bands like them.
It's funny that you said, "Oh, it's that band." I'll tell you a funny story. When I said to John Lennon that I'd like Cheap Trick to come in, some of the guys from Cheap Trick to come in and record with us when we were doing Double Fantasy, he really had no idea who they were. He was just like, okay.
Right.
And when Rick walked into the control room, he went, "Oh, it's that guy." and
that's awesome.
That's all you need, really.
He had the same reaction. But the funny thing about that whole thing was having to call my old friend George Martin, who was down in Montserrat recording Cheap Trick while I was in New York recording John, and me asking George, I said, "Can I borrow some of your guys who are actually my guys to record on your guys' record?" And he cracked up and he said, "Yeah, go ahead. It's great."
Nice.
My experience when I was younger, I had a very troubling, childhood, and it was very uncomfortable, and I had to turn into a rebellious and survivor. And I remember watching Over the Edge, this movie a long time ago. I think it was in 1979 or something, that I was 13 or 14. And it's such a great movie. Matt Dillon, I can't remember everybody in it, but it was like literally watching my life in this movie. Like, I was living in a town like that. There was nothing to do for kids. All you did was drink, get high, and get harassed by, the cops. And when I saw this film, I was like, what? And then I heard this song come on, Surrender. And I was like, I was blown away. I'm getting chills about talking about it now, but I just remembered the tone, the aggression, but there was a hope in it. It was empowering. It was rebellious. It was, anarchy at its finest. It was our theme. It was our song. And then I picked up Live at Budokan, not relating the two. I just liked the album, just like Live at Budokan, okay, this sounds good. Because, back then, kids, we used to rummage through garage sales, and there was a place called a record store, and you would go to it, and you could actually pick up the record and put it on the record player and listen in these little booths on headphones, very much like what people are streaming. It was very, different type of streaming. But I brought the record home and I just popped it on, and I didn't get live. I'm just like thinking Live at Budokan, Cheap Trick, whatever this is. And I always bought records based on the way it looked. And then I popped it on, and that was it. I was done. That album gave me, I don't know, inspiration, hope. It made me feel good. I don't know what feeling good was before that. This is a true moment of music healing, a very lost and, very troubled kid that was very depressed all the time. And I jumped on my bed. I sang. I played air guitar. I did everything that you could imagine a record is supposed to do. It happened to me with Live at Budokan. And that became my inspiration, that feeling, I just wanted it always. And so I started to actively look for music that would make me feel that way. And of course, I always land on Cheap Trick, but um, so I'm very grateful for Over the Edge for turning me on. Very at a time where licensing and big films and movies and film or music and films weren't that, it wasn't a big thing, but that was a huge moment for me. And I am friends with those guys now. Rick sends me a happy birthday every year, and I'm so grateful and thankful for that experience.
Yeah, and now you've gone on to make other people feel the way you did with your music, which is quite a thing.
Well, I thank you. I have to tell you guys this story because it's so awesome. So I get a call that Cheap Trick wants to write a song with me, and I'm like, what? Because now, I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, they want to come down. They want to write and record a song with you. And I'm like going, oh, and, now I'm just like, I'm not worthy of this. What the hell? And then so we schedule it. I'm scheduled. They're coming. And I'm somebody who doesn't write pre anything. I write on the fly. Like the artist shows up, that's when the song shows up.
Right.
And so now I'm like scrambling, and then I walk into my studio, and there's all Rick's guitars. So the day before, I set up my Mod Orange kit. I set up guitars. I set up my amps. I set up everything, bass. Everything was all set up, and I was going to change it out once those guys got there. So I see all the guitars, and they're all walking in, and I don't even have time to breathe and freak out and have a meltdown. They're like, "Okay, do you have something?" And I'm all, no, I dabbled with an idea because I was like, what am I going to do? So I play them this idea. I mean, it's barely formed. It is formed. It has an arrangement. They're like, great. We love it. Let's do it. And I'm all, wait, no, this is not better than surrender. I can't. What? No, I'm not ready. And then they're just like, and then like, they get on the kit, they get on the guitars, and they're like, this sounds awesome. Dun, 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 dun. Great. I'm like, but wait a minute, all your guitars, your amps. And they're like, no, this is all good. This is great. We're going a mile a minute, and I'm all, and then I'm like now thinking, okay, we're warmed up. We got it. They changed the key, bang, 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 did all the Cheap Trick stuff. They play it 2 times, and then there's Bunny's out the door. And I'm all, well, I'm just still dialing in. He doesn't do more than 2 takes. And then he leaves.
Boy, that's the truth.
Anyways, the song was called Perfect Stranger. And it actually came out really decent, and I was shocked, but that was my crazy, my whirlwind experience.
That's rad.
I just wanted to, since you mentioned Rick and all his guitars, I just want to go back to that Lennon session again for a moment.
Oh man!
And so Rick shows up, and we start jamming, and with Tony Levin on bass, Bunny on drums, and John's on guitar and Rick's on guitar, and they're jamming to face each other. I'm Losing You, and so I had earlier, like any guitar player that's serious about his collection, John brought all his guitars to the studio. Though we only played 2 or 3, which were the ones that we rehearsed with up at the Dakota. But he had all his guitars out in the studio, and I would go out and look around, trying to talk him into use something else. And I opened up the short case, and in that case was the classic Black Rick. And, it had been kind of, the head had been glued, it had been worked on over the years. And I picked it up, and when I turned it over, the Shea Stadium set list was still taped to the back of it.
Wow.
Oh my God, I have an icon in my hand. I put it back in the case and came in. Now Rick shows up, and Rick goes crazy over it. So I said to John, can I show Rick your guitars? And John says, sure, I'll go show him to him. So I take him right to that case. I say, Rick, open that up. And he takes it out. And I say, turn it over, look. And his eyes are big like saucers. And he turns it over, and he had to stop from peeing in his pants when he saw the set list. Then later in the day, he was out taking pictures of it and measuring this and that and everything else. And we cut the track. They left. And about a month later, a case shows up from Hamer directed to John. And he opens it up, and it's a copy of his guitar, because John had small hands. The 3/4 size was perfect for him, especially when he was in the Beatles.
Right.
And Hamer had made under Rick's direction a all white copy of his Rick and he had taken, John paid him for the session, wrote him a check. He never cashed it, of course.
Right.
But he took the signature, and he copied the signature onto the guitar, and it was a John Lennon model number 001. And there was the John Lennon, the signature on it. Yeah. And John he just flipped out. He couldn't believe it. He said, those guys are so cool.
So cool.
All right, Butch, what's yours?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm just here for everybody's stories. I got nothing. My grandmother bought me Live at Budokan for Christmas. That's about as exciting as it gets. But it was cool because my grandma, growing up in rural South, if you ever saw the movie Dazed and Confused, that was pretty much my life, the Georgia version of it. And so I had a 45 of, and I think it was I Want You to Want Me, the live version, when that album came out, because all I could afford was like, with my grass cutting money, was like a 45. I'd go to the local record store, Record and Tape World in Cartersville, Georgia. And I was very tactile, and I was very, magnetically drawn to images. And I would see a singer that was striking looking, or a band that had cool clothes on. And I would almost buy it sight unheard, because I didn't really, there's no preview. There was no YouTube. There was no nothing. There was obviously, you just took a chance. And if you went home and liked it, you wore the fuck out of that record. Right. So that's what I did. And I wore the fuck out of that little 45. And then I got the album for Christmas, from good old grandma, who literally didn't know anything about music. She just went by my older sister's direction. So this goes to my older sisters for being, my muse and being able to inspire me with their record collection. And that was one of them. And I just remember looking at it and going, oh, this is so cool. There's like two like dandy, like shag haircut, like glam rockers. And then there's two business bankers and one business banker and one kind of clown, right? Because Rick was like head to toe checkerboard, everything, as many necks on the guitar as you could get. And it was just all this like bombastic overkill. But the best part is you would put on a record by a band that was like dramatic with their image back then a lot of times, and there might not have been anything to reel you in sonically or song wise. And to a kid who has an uneducated ear and an uncritical ear, I think you actually are the best critic at that point, because you will walk away mid song if that damn thing sucks or if it's boring. And they were just, they kept me with every song. And then my grandmother did it again a little bit later down the timeline and bought me Cheap Trick, the Dream Police album for my birthday. And that album just became the soundtrack to my youth. I mean, just I can pretty much play every single song on that record still. And Voices is still one of my favorite songs of all time. And the Dream Police, is epic. It's epic, and the video is epic, and just everything about it. So I just really, I was just drawn to it that way, the same way I was drawn to Kiss when I first heard them. I mean, they were, and for a lot, go figure, my first Kiss album was Kiss Alive.
Right.
And my first Cheap Trick record was a live record. And so live records had a lot of credence back then, and they were amazing because you got a chance to, no matter how live they were or not, looking back on it, there was definitely a thing that like you couldn't get from a studio record. And clear case in point was I Want You to Want Me. I mean, they just really captured something, and that's not to diss on the studio version at all, because it's got a thing and it's cool. But when they play it live, they were ramped up and amped up and sped up and pissed off. And and that's a different energy you get, because you don't get to go in the recording studio, except for maybe Slipknot, who can like get that energy down on tape. But a lot of people need an arena full of people to have that nervous energy and that kinetic energy running to their fingers on the guitar and on the drums and everything. And there's an art form to that, so I don't know. It's not as exciting of a story, but that's what I got.
Great.
I think the band had that energy when they came in to do the first album. They had a lot of, because they were just excited to do it, and it was a new experience for them. And
But Rick is really like, that guy is high energy. He was in town and I was working with Courtney Love, and I said, come by, play some guitar, and so he just comes down, and he doesn't want to learn the song, nothing. He's like, just give me some tracks. And so he just did like 5 tracks, noodling. I mean, he had so many, he was sweating. He was just, another track. I'm like, are you even listening to the song? But then he master whatever. He goes in there and he's like, this piece, this piece, this piece, this, and then he puts a take together. And I'm just like going, holy shit, like he like heard all the gems that went by and was able to put a piece together, a take together. And then just all their little tricks that they continue to use, the little background, all that, Rick coming in with his voice. And when we did the Perfect Stranger song, it just didn't feel right. And then Rick was like, because I'm not on there yet. And I'm all, he's like, you got my voice, you got to get my voice in there. And then sure enough, as soon as his voice showed up, it was like, there it is. And
he's still got that voice. Like I remember being at an AM show like a couple of years ago, and he came to see me play a show that night. We became buddies too, I guess, over the last few years. And I started singing. I can't remember. It might have been Tonight It's You or something. And he's like, just jumped right in and started singing super high harmonies. And it was just like, this guy's like, he's got to be, how old is he now, Jack? I mean, is he like 70 or?
He's got to be close. I mean,
but his voice is like still
great.
Yeah. His voice is still 20. His voice is still 21.
Robin Zander to me is one of the most underrated singers. Like that guy's voice is insane and still there. He's got the energy, the tone. Yeah. I can't, when I was, asked to do this, there was no hesitation, because if there was any way I could possibly talk about Cheap Trick and how wonderful they are for an hour, I was going to hop on. I didn't care who's listening. I can't say enough, because it's just, again, there's something different about those guys because of all the weirdness, and then they can go into like this Beatle type song, but it's not, because there's something metal in there as well. Like, it's like they throw all their influences in, and it creates this wall of beautiful music, because they're also looking for those melodies, but it's energy and it's rocking, and it's like you don't want it to stop, and it's just keeps going. And then when they do slow it down, those melodies just keep it active, because they're doing little tricks in the back, keeping the energy moving and pulsing.
Right.
One thing about them that's so different is they have a Midwestern humility. They're very humble guys, and they're really thankful that they do what they do, and they're still doing it. They absolutely love it. They've never had a problem being an opening act. They've never had a problem if the PA or this or that, or they don't complain. They just They don't complain if they're in a small club, in a large club, in an arena. They don't complain if the dressing rooms are bad. They just, as long as they can get out on the stage and play, they're thrilled. That's
why they're still together and still making and still playing shows and making records whenever they can play shows again. Yeah. But it's like, I mean, that's a reason why, is because they didn't have those hangups early on that a lot of bands end up getting, and then they fucking diva out, and it's like and then the fun and the mystery's gone, and the the mystique is gone, and the energy is gone, and they still have that.
When I found out they were from Illinois.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I mean, when I found out what they were from Illinois. Okay, you go. Let
me just say, it's just when Tom Peterson left, I was so bummed out, because to me, it wasn't the same. And I didn't know when I was getting Cheap Trick in my studio if Tom was in, and then I found out he was in, and I was like, thank you. And again, I would talk about someone who's so simple, but very thoughtful about what he's playing. Again, all of them together is just, it's that magical thing that makes a band so great. Sorry, Corey, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, being from the Midwest, there's only a handful of acts that are from the Midwest. At the time when I was growing up, there was Cheap Trick, there was Prince, I mean, so to me, that made it even more special to me that here's this band that's from 5 hours away from my front door, like they can do it. Why can't I do it? And it just made me cherish them even more, especially once I got to meet them, was so rad, because Rick is obviously one of the biggest characters on the planet,
the best.
And to watch him be a maniac, like he brought his son to a Slipknot show. Sight unseen, didn't really know what we were about, and we were all looking at him like we'd found the Grail. Like it was just like Rick Nelson. We were freaking. I mean, and he couldn't have been more cordial. I mean, just cool as hell. And here we are, these jackasses from Iowa, just punishing him with questions and shit. I mean, it was, and then later getting to do a song with him, man. I mean, it's like. You don't think about stuff like that when you're growing up. You just love the fact that here's this amazing rock band that, to me, and I agree with Linda, like it's criminal that they aren't as appreciated as they are. Like by the time they actually got into the Hall of Fame, I was like, well, it's about 20 years too late, in my opinion. Like they're one of the greatest rock bands that ever lived, and any chance I get to talk about them, I'm absolutely going to. So it's special to me, especially coming from Iowa, where you want to talk about the middle of fucking nowhere. Yeah, we're the capital of it. For fuck.
The thing about Tom is there are two really melodic bass players, Paul McCartney and Tom.
Right.
They're playing melody, counter melody. They're playing across the chord. They find all the great spots in the chord to tickle. And that's what makes make them sound so big, is that he's not always on the route. He's always he's always found somewhere else to go. He's always counter melodying the vocal, or he's moving all the time. And when he's playing the 12-string bass, then it's just gigantic.
He's got a cool sound too, like getting the high watt and and mixing it in, so he's getting that like kind of bright distortion from the high watt, and then going with the SVT. Like there's a cool tone that he's hitting. That cuts through.
That 12-string bass was just epic. I mean, 8-string and 12-string. That was like I had a band called the Marvelous Three in the late 90s, and we were like a one-hit wonder, but our whole band was like modeled after Cheap Trick. I mean, we were a 3-piece that did that, and our bass player played a 12-string Hamer bass, and I mean, we went for it, But that was the first time I'd ever heard that sound. It was so big and so ballsy and so cool, and yet it rang and had this chime, and it was such a big thing, especially when you have one guitar player most of the time. It fills up a lot of real estate, Yeah.
Hey guys, sorry, I hate to interrupt. We actually have another panelist. Last minute, just want to get them in here.
Come on.
Hey,
Your ears ringing? Like, what's going on here?
hey,
Hey there. I knew it was going to be you.
One of my favorite people in the world.
Oh.
Well, I thought they were the smartest audience we'd ever played for. They liked us, and we had a hit, and more than one. And it was like, I think we played in Iowa the night before we went to Budokan for about 30 people.
That's a long
sorry, Corey.
Yeah, Dan, apologize to me. I know too well.
So, you've played for those 30 people before too. So then we get there, and there was 5,000 people at the airport screaming for us. We thought somebody famous was on the plane, because here we were all in coach way in the back of Northwest Orient. And actually on their first tour, Tom and I shared a room, and Bunny and Robin shared a room. We didn't even have our own rooms. And it's like, Robin says that he had to change the TV every time for Bunny because he wouldn't get up out of bed to do it. All right. So, and what the rest of the question was like,
Well, can I ask you a question? So you're coming from that, because I think a lot of bands have experienced something to that effect, where it's like they're nothing in America, then all of a sudden they go somewhere outside of America and they're huge. But for me, I just want to know, like, so this happens, what happens to you? What happened to you guys when you're coming out, you're seeing all this happen, and then when you go play that night, like, are you just blown away, and is there a different type of energy? Like, what is happening to you emotionally, you and the band?
Once again, it was like, these are the smartest people we'd ever met, and they liked us, and they cared about us. We never had anybody, certain people, yes, of course, but like, this was like a whole nation of people that knew all about us. It was like, it was so strange, because at that time there really wasn't a national music kind of magazine, except for maybe Rolling Stone, but there were the regional stuff. So we go there, and it's like, all of a sudden, it's like, when we got ready to play, we just played. I mean, it's like, because we'd played at enough shows, and we owed a lot to probably Queen and Kiss opening for them, because that's where the Japanese press came and saw us.
I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, they saw us, and, usually it's like the opening band for Queen or Kiss. It's like, they don't care anything about you. But they liked our band, and then it was Reeve from Music Life and Ungang Senka. They both asked if I would write what it's like touring with Queen. What do I know? So I'm too dumb to say no. So it's like, so I wrote a thing, and then basically right away we started getting a lot of fan mail, and our caricatures were in the Japanese magazines, which we couldn't read, but. So we started getting fan mail. Then that was with Queen at first, and then the Japanese press came again to see Kiss, and the same thing happened. So we started getting more press and more fan mail, and it was just wonderful. But I mean, so when we got up to play, we'd done big shows before, but never anything on our own. Played at Budokan 2 nights. 2 nights. There, and we'd played big shows with Queen and Kiss, but never anything big on our own like that. So it was like, so we sort of knew how to play. Let me
ask you this: once Budokan comes out, was there an immediate reaction in the States and and around the world, kind of like you had in Japan after that?
No, not right away. It wasn't until it was like the biggest selling Japanese import, because it wasn't even available in the States.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
And in Japan first.
It came out there, and it was like, so people were, whatever the cost of records were at that time, it's like, I bought a lot of English imports, but I never bought a Japanese import.
Right.
And so a lot of people were doing that. And the record company, Epic, they saw that, and it's like, it took them a while actually, but it was I think it was Lenny Collins in Boston got our record, got the I Want You to Want Me from the live version played in Boston. And then it sort of took off. And then then it got released all over the place. In Canada, we did super well there.
Nice.
I think it's like 5 times platinum or something like, or 10 times platinum. Pretty nice stuff, And so, Corey, what was your question again? I'm just spellbound just looking at how handsome you are.
No, well, I mean, obviously it goes both ways here. I mean, we haven't seen each other in a while. So.
Except for Jack, and I shouldn't count him out. These are some of the best singers in the whole industry. Corey's great, Butch great, Linda's great. Jack, I'm not so sure.
No, not too good.
Only in the shower, though, right, Jack? I mean, you hit the high notes in the shower.
I had a question. If Corey, you're not going to do yours, because I'm just interested in, because one of the things that I brought up was way I heard of Cheap Trick was through that movie Over the Edge when Surrender was in there. Now today, if you get on a big movie and it, like the sync and all that stuff, licensing is huge right now. It's like the new radio, right? But back then, 1979 actually lines up perfectly because that movie came out in 79. And then I believe that Budokan was available in 79. Did that have any play? Did that do anything? Like, what did it like blow things up, or back then was it not in big that you had a song in a big movie?
Well, Matt Dillon, his first movie, and the fact that we had, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 songs in there. Yep. The real cult people like Linda, it's like that knew about that stuff and followed that stuff. They couldn't believe that we're on there. It's like, and it was, I think, the songs were played at good times too. Like when they're breaking shit and the cops are chasing them and stuff, and here our songs playing. All right, it's like they didn't wait to, like Joe Dirt, just play our song at the very end. The movie's over. So yeah, that meant a lot, and I think that helped. That helped another project we did with Jack. We did Rock and Rule.
Part 2. Wow.
Yeah, the animation.
Right.
And we had 3 songs in there. It was we had Iggy Pop and had Lou Reed, and it had all these different people playing characters. And we had 3 songs in there. We're the only band that did. So it was like that kind of helped it. And since then, I mean, we've been in so many different movies. It's like I had to wait till the very end of the Guardians of the Galaxy to hear the theme song we had in there. But I did see 10 Things I Hate About You. I took my daughter. She was 12 years old, and her friend to the movie. We get there, go right to the front row. Nice little kids. First words, fuck. All right, great. All right, kids, want some more popcorn? And so I've had some fun with it.
I snuck in to see Up the Creek just because of your song being in it. And I was too young to see it because it had nudity in it, of course. And I lived in like total footloose town. So like the theater, we called it the Sticky Foot. And it was 2 theaters side by side, and that was a genius idea because they'd put a G-rated movie on one side and an R-rated movie on the other with a common area for the lobby. I'd pay for the G movie, go in, my parents dropped me off, I'd go in, and then I'd waltz right over to the R-rated movie and sit down. And I watched Up the Creek, and that song Up the Creek that you guys did for that movie was rad. I love that.
It was one of the worst, but
it was amazing to me, though.
Matheson is great.
Who doesn't like the sticky floor?
Well,
exactly.
That was great.
Linda, you're trying to ask all these serious things, and it's like, you know how my mind goes.
I know. I wasn't trying to ask serious questions. I'm just curious because I'm curious about stuff like that. I'm really fascinated with the music business right now. I'm fascinated about it, 20, 30 years ago and beyond that. So I just pick up on these little things. And I was saying, and I'm going to tell you, and I think I've told you this before, but I mean, your music, Cheap Trick, the band, everything really inspired me to feel good, and in a time when I was growing up, I didn't feel good ever. I was very depressed. It was very dark times for me. And Live at Budokan, literally, I just remember I can close my eyes and just like be there yesterday, just jumping on my bed, air guitaring, going, holy fucking hell, what is this feeling? And then actively pursuing that feeling. So thank you for that. I've been very, in awe of you. And so, and I told them about how you always wish me a happy birthday every year. And you're just an incredible human being. And I can't believe, I know you and, this person that really rescued, a very dark kid.
Well, great. And I hope we rescued you a bit more. We have one of your songs on our new record.
I know. Can I just say it's the best one?
No.
It started in a restaurant on the Upper West Side. I met with Ken Adamany, who was then the manager. And he said, listen, we're doing this thing in Japan. Would you mix the record when we get it back? And I said, yeah, sure. And he said, oh, well, I'm not going to give you any points on the record, but I'll give you a And I said, well, anything for the guys, sure. He said, this record isn't going to sell. It's only going to come out in Japan. Yeah. So I said, okay, fine. So a few weeks later, Jay Messina and I are in the studio, and boxes and boxes of 2-inch tape arrived from Japan. Budokan, 2 nights, Osaka. I can't remember all the other places, but there were all these tapes. And so the name of the album is going to be Live at Budokan. That we know already. So we put up the tapes from Budokan. And the band's playing great, but the technically it was kind of messed up. And we put up the second night. Yeah, it was a little bit better, but still kind of messy, production-wise, not the band.
Right.
Then we put up Osaka, and same kind of energy in the performance, but technically, aside from the drums, it's better. And so we decided that the Budokan album was going to be really Osaka at that point. So we started working. The first thing we had to do was we had to manufacture, in a way, a drum kit, because there was very little bass drum, and which was just like a mono track and of drums, and then 2 overheads. So there was very little snare and very little bass drum. So what we did was we took the overhead mix of the drums, which had some snare and some bass drum in it, and we filtered out everything except for 30 to 80 cycles, which is now just a thump. And then we went out and I put a bass drum in the studio, and I taped a speaker to it with this 30 cycle thump. And then we mic'd the bass drum, and that became the bass drum sound. And the same thing with the snare. We went in and we carved out like 3 to 5K. And then I put a small speaker on a snare drum and mic'd the snares. And that became the snare sound that we could add to the overhead. Funny enough, that became, Bunny put out a thing called Bunny in the Box. All his drum sounds that you could sample. and they're all these drum sounds from the Budokan album, but they're actually, a mic for the most part. But luckily the overheads were clean, and the tom-toms sounded pretty good. We even went in and gated to get some more tom-toms. Then there were some places where a bass dropped out or a vocal dropped out a little bit. The guys came in for, I think, a day and did very minor fixing. And this was all, all of the stuff that's on the Budokan album is really from Osaka. So, but there's no romance from Osaka. Doesn't ring as well from Budokan. So we did that. We mixed it. Those guys did a few fixes, basically because of a dropout of a microphone. The audience was just phenomenal. I mean, at least 25% of the excitement on that record is the sound of the band in the arena and bouncing off those screaming girls. It just is incredible. And so, we mixed it, and I think it sounded pretty good, and off it went to Epic. But I just want to say one funny thing. Many years later, Rick calls me up. He's in town. He goes, "Guess what? We've got the video to Budokan, and we're going to put out a DVD of the actual performance." Yeah, well, you could do like surround sound, do the whole thing. Well, I said, that's great, but you have Budokan and the album is Osaka. So through the magic of Pro Tools, we were able to use on close-ups, it's a Budokan. And when it has to be, it's Osaka because of the sound. And it's pretty flawless. You can't tell. Everything's in sync. A few people have noticed when they got the DVD that how come this guitar solo is different?
It's from night one. It's fine.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've been saying. It was mixed out on API, by the way.
Oh, it was. Well, I was actually wanting to ask you what that was mixed on. Yeah, there's an API right there. Yeah.
Right there.
Funny, yeah, that's like I would ask a million technical questions being a producer and engineer myself, but I think talk about that. But I think one of the things that you mentioned earlier, Jack, that drew me in and made me want to be on stage, want to make a live record one day, and obviously play Japan was hearing that crowd on that record. It gave me chills, it still gives me chills. It gave me chills when I heard it because you hear them go, "I want you to want me." And all of a sudden it's just a sea of people freaking out, Japanese fans. And I'm like, okay, I don't know where Japan is, but I want to go there. They party. They party. I mean, I've seen bands at Six Flags and they don't get an audience reception like this, and so that was just sort of that what you guys captured on that was not only the energy of the band, but the energy of the audience and that room, which later I got to open for somebody at Budokan in my career. And it was a magic moment to be there just because of the band you guys took this hall in Japan that really didn't have any cultural significance in America, especially, but in Japan it was sacred ground, and so being able to just get that education about that and then later go there and play it. And then in Osaka, which is where, in Osaka, I went to a tattoo shop and got that tattoo
the flag. All right.
On my arm. Right after the show. And so, that would, I think that would probably, I'm not really, don't have much to chime in about the production of it because I think it's already been said, but because I've got to go pick my son up, I just wanted to say, Rick, I love you.
Which I love you too. Thank you for the birthday greetings with Billy Joe Armstrong singing one of our songs.
Yeah,
Singing great.
me and Billy Joe were at a bar just waxing how incredible you are and how incredibly influential you've been on our careers. You know, my little career as an artist, but his huge career in Green Day, and then we had to call you and give you a happy birthday message. So
I got a tattoo too.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, I got it in Yokohama and David Bowie and Iman were right in front of me.
That's amazing.
It was the guy that did the Yakuza.
That's amazing. Well, hey, I love all of you guys, and it's so good to see you guys, and super honored to be a part of this and be in the room, in the virtual room with all of you. And Rick, I'll hit you up, and I'll be back in Tennessee soon, and let's all hang one day, okay?
I can't wait. Again.
Awesome. All right.
Later, Butch.
Bye, Butch.
Later, man.
Bye, guys.
For me, one of the things that, Jack, I think you did amazingly besides the band, but I didn't like, to me, what a live album is about capturing the vibe, you know. And I've heard live albums where, yeah, they ruined the vibe because they try to overdo it and try to make it like a studio recording. And I feel like that makes perfect sense the way you just described what you did, because, you know, somebody else could have completely ruined it, you know, and you kept the vibe. You enhanced things that were missing. But what is great about the album is you don't care what it sounds like, because it's such a great vibe. And again, that's because of Cheap Trick and the energy that you guys are and always bring. But, you know, that album will stand up no matter what, good kick drum sound or not. It doesn't matter. It's a great record. And you did such an amazing job keeping the integrity of that performance.
Yeah, I think I because I knew the band from the first album, and how the first album is very, very raw, and when I heard the tape of, you know, what they were doing in Japan, it sounded to me like what I knew of as the band, just this raw, powerful energy and just full of life. You know, you could feel it, and so there was no reason to fuck with it at all. It just get it on the vinyl. That's all we had to do. And the only thing we fixed were things that were dropped out, or, you know, that was all.
Well, I've got a quick aside. We played Zeppelin plots with the Who for 190,000 people. And at that show, Pete Townsend, I even got the picture of it. He comes over to me, Rick, how'd you get that sound at the Live at Budokan? I said, you did Live at Leeds. What are you asking me for? It's true. What a guy. What does he know?
I just had one tiny question. Sorry. So when you went to vinyl, did you have them hit it more like, you know, to glue it? Like, so how, because it just has that perfect, you know, obviously we all know vinyl just brings like this glue, but did you do anything when you were when you're going to mix, like, were you hitting it a certain, you know, to get that saturation, or were you back off?
It was important that I knew what was going to be on the outer side, the furthest outside of the disc, and what was going to be on the inside. And, you know, I had certain restrictions because the show ran in a certain order, but and to make as little time as possible on each side. And then, of course, I went to Sterling. You know, I've always been at my mastering sessions to make sure that we don't over compress, but we get it. We get a good groove on the disc, a good deep groove. And, you know, it's important to have that loudest stuff on the outside of the record, and the stuff with a little less dynamics on the inside.
Because one of the biggest things right now, again, see, I know I'm the serious one, but one of the battles in music right now is everybody wants everything loud, 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 loud. They're hitting everything. The mixer is making it loud. The band is sending it to the mixer loud. The mixer makes it loud. Then the mastering, it gets sacrificed, as you know. But I just think that when things are just hitting at a certain level, I don't think people realize how musical things can be when you actually approach it exactly the way you just said. It's like everything doesn't have to be super loud, but it becomes more musical when you find balance and let things get loud. One song get loud, but everything's like, shh. It's just like one flat.
Yeah. That to me, a record or a song or whatever is like a movie. So there are things that are in the forefront and there are things that are in the rear, but you see all those things when you're watching a movie. And the idea for me is to give a record depth so that you discover things in a mix, not to flatten out everything and bring it all to the forefront so you hear everything all the time. It doesn't work for me. John pointed out to me, and we sat and listened one time to Sgt. Pepper in mono, which was the way he and George Martin listened to it. And boy, they mixed it. They never mixed it for stereo. They mixed it in mono. And it's so much more exciting than a stereo version, because what they did was they mixed to depth. And that is just, it's so colorful that way to hear all of this stuff and it becomes very visual, especially if you're smoking a little.
Hey. Easy, baby.
Thank you for saying that, because I think that I find it that very hard to listen to. Well, first of all, I don't think people are making albums. They're just releasing songs after songs after songs. So no one's even thinking about depth. No one's thinking about, what would be a great segue from here to here? Like, we are not in those days or those.
No, they're over.
I feel like we might, Slipknot's going to make a conceptual album, and I'm right, Corey. And, but I feel like we're getting into that area.
They all are.
Where we can actually. But I think, hearing you, Jack, and, you're such a legend in that field. And no matter how hip somebody is, they're going to listen to a Jack Douglas because you made some of the greatest records out there that are still blowing records away that are made today. Because there is no depth. There's no emotion. It's just.
A lot of music's temporary today. Like a lot of it's just a blueprint. It's a screenshot of what is today, and it has no sense of history. There's no before it and there's no after it. It's just a fingerprint, and that's it, which is where you lose the dynamics, you lose the drama, you lose the storytelling. I mean, people are basically just kind of kicking out hamburgers these days, whereas I think it's safe to say everyone on the screen, we all look at music in a completely different way. Like it's not something that is snackable, which I fucking hate that fucking phrase. It's something that you can revisit time and time and time again. And it means something different every time you listen to it, which is where music that has a sense of drama and has a sense of dynamics will present itself in a different kind of mood. A song can mean 6 different things to somebody, whereas a lot of the newer music today, it only means one thing to a certain generation, and it's not going to mean anything in 10 years, which is sad, But I think at the same time, there are people like us and there are people outside of this room that still adhere to that mindset, which I think will be good when it all comes back around, because
if it does, I don't know if it will in my lifetime, but I will continue to make the records that I like to listen to. So I can afford to make records that I like to make at this point. So people come to me to make records that do the thing that I'm talking about. We have common.
You go to another world, Rick, where I feel like in this record, I feel like you guys always capture Cheap Trick. That's what what I love about Cheap Trick. You guys don't go like, there's some bands that want to be relevant and sound like what's going on. And you guys are so distinctive. There's no way you could do something like that. And even listening to that record, I feel like, again, you're capturing the magic of Cheap Trick. Great songs, classic, Rick in there. I'm hearing all your, and your melody structure, dips, how you can go into, I think it was I'll See You Again, which I love that song.
Yeah, me too.
And again, I mean, I'm sorry, I like Here's Looking at You. I think that's a classic Cheap Trick song, but you guys, if I wrote it with you guys or not, doesn't matter. It's a great song and you guys nailed it. Classic Cheap Trick. And
we've never progressed. So that's
a good thing.
Well, we haven't. It's like we still like the Yardbirds, the Who, Rolling Stones, and the Beatles. It's like they made good records. Even it's not all I like, but it's like, when you go to that, and I never wanted to be. I'm a songwriter more than a guitar player. So I've never played riffs and here comes the solo. Well, fuck that. We hire somebody good to do that.
What's great about this new album is that it has all those elements of pop and rock, and it can go from See You Again to Light Up the Fire.
I stole the solo from the song Happenings 10 Years Time Ago. It was the first song that Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck both played on their single.
Yeah.
And so I stole, I don't do it as good as Jeff, but it's like the song sounded like that. It's like, so I just played it, it's like, but I admit it right away. Otherwise, it's like people are going to say, well, he stole that, but he didn't do a very good job. I say that, before.
How was the process of that? Can you talk about making In Another World?
It was part of it. I was sick. I got pneumonia, and so I'd never been sick before. So some of the stuff I had to fly. They flew the stems up to Rockford, and I played in my son's studio. I did some of the solos with it, and did some of the, like Linda said, some of that stuff in there. I'm notorious for that. And let's see. And Corey, last night I was just listening to, is it Unalienated or Unstained or something? One of your songs?
Unsainted. Yeah.
Unsainted. Yeah. I really enjoyed that. It's like, I like seeing all the different textures. You're a singer like Robin, who's like, you can sing like an angel and you can sing like the fucking devil, it's like, and you do it and you're believable in all of those. That's why Robin's so hot. He's a real singer. He's not just
there's nothing he can't sing.
So I was listening to that and it's like, and then I happened to turn on that video that Linda, you did about the guitar. And when you said about it's not the amps or whatever, it's the guitar player. I'll send it. You have it. You know what I'm talking about. But I'll send it to you, Corey. I don't know if I have all your present stuff, but
I got to get you my info again.
Yeah. When we did the song for the Foo Fighters, that was like for the
Sound
City thing. It was like that was a lot of fun. We played all kinds of different clowns in that circus.
Dude, how much fun was that plane ride though, with you and Rick Springfield geeking on each other's Beatles collection, and I'm standing here like I won a contest. I was just like, what am I doing watching this happen? Like, it was so ridiculous. But those shows were so much fun because we just got up and we just jammed. We just had a blast.
It was sort of like that. We Are the World. The egos were left at the door. Really, the egos were left at the door. It's like, I get along with everybody. At least I try to.
Well, that's true. That's true. Well, everybody loves you though. So I mean, it's kind of easy.
Well, I like Jack Douglas still too. Well, for me, the live version was us playing live, And it's like, the studio version was so lame. It's like, it just didn't sound like us, like Jack said, the first album, how raw we were, and we were still raw. But then because of the live track, the audience, we didn't know that they were going to do the answering. Didn't I say crying? They did that on their own. It's like, we're standing on stage. When that happened, it was like, holy, that's a good idea. I wish my producer, Linda Perry, would have told me. No, it was so cool. They did it on their own. They weren't like, come on. We weren't begging for that. They did it on their own. It's like, how cool is this? They should arrange our songs for us.
For me, we cut
that on the first record too.
Cut it on the first record, and I said, okay, let's put this one on the back burner for the next record because it just needs to be toughened up, and maybe let's see where we can go with it. But I had no intentions of making it ever soft, and then I was supposed to do the second album, and I got involved with Aerosmith's Draw the Line, which was like just lasted a year, and and couldn't get to work with these guys. And Tom Werman, he loved the band, and so he took hold of the reins. But I Want You to Want Me, when I heard the live version, sounded to me like the Cheap Trick that I knew from the first record.
Right.
That same energy. So I think that I think a lot of people heard that, and it's also the line. It's a great line. I want you to want me.
Right. It's the simplicity.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example as a simple song. That's just, I want you to want me. I need you to need me. It's like the whole didn't I see you cry? It's so repetitive and easy to grab onto and melodically memorable. And so, it's a classic, great, this is the way songs should be written. They don't have to. Everybody thinks that they have to do all these massive chord changes and go really deep. And I want to show all my skills, and I want to talk about, the birth of Jesus Christ and, whatever. And it's like, just give it straight. It doesn't, a lot of things that I tell people is, I'll see them like really getting into it, like the perils of my skin are dripping from the loins.
And that's just the beginning of the metaphor.
And I'm like, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say you're fucking horny right now? And right. That's it? Well, just say, I want you, to want me, whatever, but it's like, I think that people get so deep and think that that's the way to songwrite. Songwriting doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. I wish I could be that stupid more often. True.
I think the reason that we put that one on the back burner during the course of the first album is that the first album, to my head anyway, is like a very political album, and it was touching on so many parts of society, not purposely. It's not like you went after it, but you covered everything. Daddy wants to stay in should have stayed in high school. Candy, why did you do it? The ballad of Richard Speck, which they had to change because Richard Speck was going to sue us. It had to become the ballad of TV violence, which is Richard Speck saying saying why he's going to be murdering all these nurses in Chicago. And so that record was. Had a lot of, I was hoping that it would hit the college circuit and they would get it because it's fun, but it's also has a little bit of a message to it about what was going on at the time. And I thought, well, we'll save the super pop songs for a little later. The only thing that's really off the beaten track on that one is Mandocello, which is one of my favorite all time. But it starts with Taxman and it goes on.
Paul Prestopino.
Yeah.
I borrowed his Mandocello to do this song. I had a Mandocello, but I didn't bring it to New York.
Yeah. It's a beautiful song.
Yeah. That's why on the first album, it's like I spoke with Tom Peterson. I said, I write these songs, and it's like, should I change my name? Because like people hear that he's a whore and Ballad of TV Violence. I mean, and then I do Mandichel. I wonder, it's like, are they going to take me seriously or not? And he said, well, don't change your name. Really? Now everybody misspells my name. So there you go.
There you go.
Well, yeah, the record was just coming out, and Robin says it on the intro. Here's a song from our new album, and it's like, but that song always went over well, even from people hearing it the first time. For some reason, we're all right. We're all right. I guess, it's like nobody understood what the lyrics, what we're saying in the lyrics at first, but it's just it was sing-songy enough, and the fact that it started off in a B flat, moved to B for 2 verses, and then the third verse in C, it's the old trick. If it's not too exciting, go to a different key. So that's what I did on that, and it's like it just always went over fairly well. And then and when the TV show, that 70s show came out, they were going to use that or the song "In the Street" from Big Star, and after the first year they said, well, we should have used yours, and I say, so now can you do this? Can you do Big Star? So then we did that, and we added the "We're all right" at the end, right. And so we got a song credit out of that. Rob and I split 10%.
There you go.
But there was something about mentioning Kiss in the lyrics.
Oh yeah, well, Kiss, and I threw the record out.
I Kiss records out.
Yeah.
I think, to me, it's like also, again, it's just speaking a language to kids in that time. And, especially just going into the, first thing mother told me, like you go right into that, you're like instantly you listen because you're like, oh, you're in this rebellious mode about your parent, a song about parents not being good to you. Okay. And then, it's just the energy and that surrender. I mean, it's got emotion. It's got cinematic appeal. It just really hits you in every single way because the word surrender and the way it's phrased and the chords it's under, it's like everything about it it's the perfect anthem for any kid or any adult or anybody looking to break free from, the norm, or if they feel contained or suppressed. I mean, it's such a great friggin' song. I mean, literally, it's the best song ever. And I can't speak enough about it. I mean, it will forever just be the greatest song ever.
It's definitely top 5 perfect rock songs, man. I mean, it's got so many different layers of different genres in it too. Like you hear old school rock in it, you hear, with the key changes, you can hear like 50s rock, you can hear, but there's punk in it. There's just so many different elements to it, coupled with just Robin's voice and the melody. I mean, just the way he says it, the way he sings it, the way the music's delivered. It's weird because there's such a weird juxtaposition. There's a punch that goes with it, and yet it's such a smooth song, it's gritty, but it's just a fucking and I challenge anyone who hears it not to sing it for the rest of the day. It's just one of those songs that you just get stuck in your head. I've been doing it. Like my 6-year-old daughter is obsessed with the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack.
Is she Japanese?
That's the song.
Is she Japanese?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I got to talk to her mother about it.
Right.
You just never know. I mean, that's the song that she gravitates towards. She's like, play the surrender song. Play the surrender song. And I'm like, all right. I mean,
she's heard the word mommy. She's heard the word daddy around the house.
Like, I can relate that. There we go.
Well, I think also having Wax in the Philippines and, again, Kiss and Indonesia. I mean, it's so weird lyrically, like you're going, what? But you don't care. They're almost like today's top lines.
Right. Exactly.
There's all these
it was have to
like major top
yeah,
lines.
it's all stuff that was in my past, and I used double and triple entendre in it too. It's like Indonesian junk. People's is that the boat, or is that the Vietnam War with the guys getting hooked over there? It's like, what does that mean? But then it gets back to the mommy and daddy and rolling on the couch and rolling numbers, and now it's got my Slipknot records out.
Let me start a real brief comment, and that is that all of these songs that we've talked about, when you go see Surrender, I Want You to Want Me, when you go see Cheap Trick live, they play those songs still with the same excitement and enthusiasm that like it was new. And so an audience is never cheated when they go see the band.
Right.
And that is an amazing thing for a band to be able to do that. And in the studio, it's still a blast and fun and energetic, and we just have so much fun.
I love you, Jack.
Love you too, Rick.
I second that motion.
I love you, Linda. Love you, Corey.
Better. I love you too.
I just think that, I remember being at South by Southwest and I was so tired, and I'm walking back and I heard you guys. I don't remember what year it was, but I was down the street and I was just like, I didn't know you guys were there. And I ran over there. I begged to get in, and I just stayed. Again, the live performance that you guys do, it's magnetic. You'll never get that, if you're just listening to the records. As great as your records are, it's so important. Thank God the world is opening up, and hopefully you guys are going to be out on the road, but everybody just needs to have this experience, because what makes a band last is just the fact that they can just keep doing it because they love to do it. That's how we last. That's how artists last. They don't last because they have big hits and all this stuff. They last because they want to, and that's a big difference.
Yep.
Just from my standpoint, obviously, I mean, getting to know you over the years has been just such a treasure for me. And not only meeting you, but then obviously meeting Robin and Tom that day, that press day that we had in New York, where you guys trolled me for about like an hour or so. Because every time I turned around, you guys were popped up over a wall going, what are you talking about? What are you talking? And I'm like, what? Why is Cheap Trick trolling me right now? What is happening? It was one of my, it still is one of my favorite memories. One of my favorite memories, like getting to play with you on those Sound City shows. I mean, you guys have always been one of my favorite bands, and knowing that you're just as rad as people as you are as a band is just fucking icing on the cake, man. So I am really, really stoked to be able, like Linda, I just want to see you guys play again, because you're the real deal and you always have been. So I'm just glad you're here. That's all I got to say.